Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we'll be exploring one of the most ancient and influential inventions in history. This is a world of sunlight, of fruit, and of magical transformations. Wine is not just a drink, it is a process. It relies on the subtle interactions between the land, the weather, and the complex chemistry that humans have learned to control, all held together in a single glass. Across thousands of years, it has followed humanity through changing landscapes and shifting cultures. It is shaped by soil, by climate, and by choices so small they almost go unnoticed. From hillside vineyards to deep cellars, from wild fermentation to careful aging, every step carries a story that continues to evolve long after the bottle is sealed. The story of wine is far more ancient, more complex, and more fascinating than you might expect. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Let your body soften and allow your eyes to grow heavy. And as your mind begins to gently unwind, join me as we explore this remarkable drink together. Let's begin. Wine is older than writing, and nearly as old as cities. Long before alphabets, books, or kings carved their names into stone, people were already gathering grapes and waiting for something miraculous to happen. Fermentation likely began by accident, when crushed fruit met wild yeast and transformed into a drink unlike anything found in nature. That means wine belongs to the earliest human experiments in chemistry, farming, and pleasure all at once. It appeared alongside settlement itself, when people were no longer only hunting and wandering, but planting, storing, trading, and shaping landscapes for the future. In that sense, wine is not a luxury added later to civilization. It is woven into civilization's beginning. Before many people could write down a harvest, they could already share one. Before history had records, it had toasts. And that makes wine feel less like a product and more like a surviving thread that still connects your glass to the first great turning points of human life. The oldest known winery was hidden inside an ancient cave. In Armenia, archaeologists uncovered something astonishing inside a cave called Areni I. They found not just traces of grapes, but a whole winemaking space from more than 6,000 years ago. There was a shallow basin where fruit seems to have been crushed by foot, a channel for juice to flow through, and large vessels where fermentation or storage likely followed. Nearby, they also found drinking cups and grape seeds, which makes the picture even more vivid. This was not random fruit rotting in the dark. This was a process. It was planned, repeated, and understood. What makes the discovery so gripping is the setting itself. The winery was not found in a grand ruin or a lost palace. It was tucked inside stone and shadow, preserved by stillness. Deep in that cave, the ancient world suddenly feels intimate. Someone stood there, pressed grapes there, and waited there for transformation. A bottle of wine begins as sunlight stored inside grapes. Every vine is a machine for catching light. Through photosynthesis, grape leaves pull energy from the sun and turn it into sugar, building the raw material that will later become alcohol, aroma, and texture. So when you lift a glass, you are not only tasting fruit, you are tasting a season's worth of daylight, gathered slowly and then sealed into berries hanging in warm air. That idea becomes even more beautiful when you think about how differently sunlight arrives. Morning light is not the same as evening light. A clouded summer is not the same as a blazing one. A steep slope changes the angle. Nearby water changes the reflection. All of it affects ripening. Then harvest captures that energy at one precise moment before it fades or shifts. Wine feels ancient and earthy, yet at its root, it begins with something almost cosmic. It begins with light crossing space, striking leaves, and becoming something you can taste. Yeast turns grape juice into wine by breathing out alcohol. At first glance, grape juice seems innocent enough. It is sweet, bright, and full of sugar. Then yeast arrives, and the whole story changes. These microscopic fungi consume that sugar and convert it into alcohol, carbon dioxide, and heat. It sounds technical, but it is really one of the most dramatic natural transformations in everyday life. A quiet liquid starts to fizz, foam, warm, and release clouds of scent. Fruit becomes something deeper, stranger, and far more layered. This is the heartbeat of winemaking. Without yeast, there is no wine at all. What makes it feel almost magical is that the creatures doing this work are invisible. Billions of them can reshape an entire vat, each one carrying out the same tiny act, until the liquid before you becomes something completely new. In a real sense, wine is not simply made by human hands. It is made in partnership with living organisms too small to see. One vineyard can taste different from the next field over. It sounds impossible at first. How could two places so close together produce wines that taste noticeably different? Yet, this is one of the most captivating things about wine. A few meters of distance can change drainage, soil depth, wind exposure, frost risk, and how much sun a row of vines receives across the day. One patch of land may warm earlier each morning. Another may hold just enough moisture to slow ripening. One may sit on limestone, another on clay. The grapes do not ignore those differences. They record them. That is why growers can become almost obsessed with tiny parcels of land, treating one slope as entirely distinct from the next. To outsiders, it may seem fussy. To people who word vines, it can feel obvious. Wine teaches a surprising lesson through this. Place is not broad or general. Place can be astonishingly precise. A field is not always one thing. Sometimes it is many hidden worlds standing side by side. Red wine gets its color mostly from grape skins, not juice. Most dark grapes do not hold crimson juice inside them. Crush them, and what runs out is often pale, almost clear. The deep ruby, purple, or garnet tones people associate with red wine come mainly from the skins, which release pigment during fermentation as they soak in the juice. That means color is less about what the grape contains at its center and more about contact, timing, and extraction. Leave the skins in long enough, and the wine darkens and gains tannin as well. Pull them away early, and the result can be much lighter. This is one of those details that instantly changes how wine feels. Suddenly, color becomes an event, not a given. It is something drawn out through touch. Even more surprising, this is why white wine can be made from red grapes if the skins are removed quickly enough. Beneath the darkness, the fruit itself is often far paler than it seems. Some vines still grow on roots older than living memory. In a few rare places, there are grapevines whose roots have been in the ground for generations beyond counting. They have lived through wars, changing borders, lost languages, and the rise and fall of entire ways of life. While many vineyards around the world were destroyed or replanted over time, a small number of ancient vines survived, especially in isolated places where disease or upheaval did not erase them. These plants are not impressive because they are lush or vigorous. In fact, old vines often produce less fruit. What fascinates growers is their depth, balance, and endurance. Their roots have explored the same earth for decades. sometimes more than a century, finding water and minerals far below the reach of younger plants. There is something deeply moving about that. A vine can outlast the people who train it, prune it, and harvest it. It can remain, season after season, quietly carrying memory underground. The same grape can taste completely different in different countries. Take one grape variety and plant it across the world, and you do not get one repeated flavor. You get many versions of the same idea. Pinot Noir in Burgundy can be delicate, earthy, and finely textured. In California, it can become darker, riper, and more plush. Riesling in Germany may feel electric and light-footed, while in Australia it can turn sharper, drier, and intensely lime-scented. The grape has not changed species, yet the result can seem almost like a different personality. Climate is part of that. So are soils, sunlight, rainfall, local yeasts, harvest choices, and winemaking traditions that shape what growers aim for. This is one reason wine is so compelling. It resists simplification. A grape is never just a grape. It is an argument between nature and place, filtered through culture. The passport changes the expression. The name stays the same, but the voice comes out different. Tiny changes in soil, slope, and wind can reshape a wine. Wine can be altered by forces so small, most people would never notice them while walking past. A slight incline may help cold air drain away on spring nights, saving buds from frost. A patch of stony ground may reflect extra warmth upward into the vines. A corridor of wind may dry grapes after rain and reduce disease pressure. Even the depth and texture of the soil can change how hard a vine must work for water, which in turn changes the size and concentration of the fruit. None of these things sound dramatic on their own. Yet together they can tilt a wine toward brightness or richness, tension or softness, perfume or restraint. That is what makes the subject so absorbing. Wine is shaped not only by huge weather events, but by quiet pressures accumulating over months. A breeze, a drain of cold air, a line of stones, a shallower patch of earth. Small causes can leave a lasting taste. Wine has survived empires, plagues, wars, and thousands of harvests. Few human traditions have lasted with such stubborn continuity. Empires rose and collapsed around wine. Religions adopted it, regulated it, or argued over it. Trade routes carried it across seas. Armies marched through vineyards. Disease struck vines and forced whole regions to replant. Yet the practice endured. People kept pruning, harvesting, fermenting, storing, and pouring. That persistence tells you something important. Wine is not a trend and never was. It has been ceremonial, medicinal, ordinary, sacred, commercial, and deeply local, sometimes all at once. It has belonged to peasants and kings, monasteries and markets, feast days and daily meals. Even when catastrophe interrupted production, someone always planted again. That long survival gives wine an unusual weight. When you see a bottle, you are seeing a tradition that has repeatedly been broken and rebuilt, then carried forward anyway. It has crossed centuries not because history was kind to it, but because generation after generation decided it mattered enough to save. Most grape juice is pale, even inside very dark grapes. Cut open a dark wine grape, and the surprise is immediate. The flesh is usually light, almost translucent, and nowhere near the dramatic color people expect. That means the darkness we associate with many wines is not hiding in the center like some secret ink. It has to be drawn out through the winemaking process. This small detail changes the whole way you imagine a grape. It is not a tiny bottle waiting to be opened. It is a layered fruit with different parts contributing different things. The pulp brings juice and sugar. The skins bring pigment and structure. The seeds can add bitterness if handled carelessly. Even the stems can matter in some fermentations. Once you know this, a bunch of grapes stops looking simple. It starts to feel engineered by nature for transformation, with each part waiting to play its role at exactly the right moment. The fizz in sparkling wine can come from a second fermentation. Still wine becomes sparkling through a kind of planned awakening. After the first fermentation has already turned juice into wine, winemakers can add a small mixture of sugar and yeast, then seal the liquid so the new carbon dioxide has nowhere to escape. That trapped gas dissolves into the wine and builds the bubbles from within. In the bottle, or sometimes in a pressurized tank, the liquid begins its second life. This is what makes traditional sparkling wine feel so thrilling. The sparkle is not pumped in like air in a tire. It is born inside the wine itself through renewed fermentation. That gives the process an almost theatrical quality. A finished wine appears calm, then quietly starts again in darkness. Pressure rises, bubbles form, texture changes, aroma changes. What seemed complete reveals another stage entirely. The transformation feels hidden and dramatic at once, like a secret process unfolding behind glass. Champagne bottles hold pressure greater than many car tires. A bottle of sparkling wine may look elegant and harmless on a table, but inside, it can contain an astonishing amount of force. The pressure in a typical bottle of champagne is often around 6 atmospheres, which is higher than the pressure inside many car tires. That means every bottle is holding back a compressed storm of dissolved gas, waiting for release. This is why sparkling bottles are built from thicker glass, why the cork is tightly wired down, and why opening one produces that unmistakable burst. The sound is not merely festive. It is physics escaping. It also helps explain why mishandled bottles can be dangerous and why sellers once feared exploding glass during production. Behind the romance of fine bubbles and celebration lies a vessel under serious strain. A sparkling bottle is not just storage. It is containment. It holds tension, silence, and pressure together until one twist of the hand changes everything in an instant. Some wines smell like flowers, smoke, leather, or fresh rain. One of wine's strangest pleasures is that it can smell vividly of things that were never put into it. No one dropped roses, struck flint, or soaked saddles inside the barrel, yet those aromas can appear with startling clarity. This happens because grapes and fermentation create hundreds of aromatic compounds, and the human brain interprets them by comparison. It reaches for memory. A floral note becomes jasmine or violet. An earthy note becomes forest floor after rain. Aging can deepen that experience, bringing out scents that feel like cedar chests, tobacco leaves, dried herbs, or old libraries. The effect can be almost eerie, because aroma in wine is never just chemistry. It is memory meeting molecules. You smell the glass, and your mind begins searching through seasons, rooms, objects, and landscapes. That is why wine can feel so transporting. Sometimes one inhale seems to open not just a bottle, but a whole shelf of remembered worlds. Oak barrels do not just hold wine, they quietly flavor it. A wooden barrel is not a neutral container. It breathes, releases compounds, and slowly reshapes the liquid resting inside it. As wine ages in oak, it can pick up notes that remind people of vanilla, spice, toast, cedar, clove, or smoke. The exact effect depends on many choices. French oak often brings a different texture and aromatic profile from American oak. A lightly toasted barrel behaves differently from one charred more deeply over fire. New barrels leave a stronger mark than older ones. This means a cellar is not just full of storage vessels. It is full of tools that can nudge a wine toward richness, softness, sweetness of scent, or greater structure. For centuries, barrels were used simply because they were practical for transport and aging. Then people discovered they were changing the wine as well. So oak became both container and ingredient, shaping flavor through time, wood, and breath, rather than through any visible act. A wine can taste dry, even when some sugar remains. Dryness in wine sounds as though it should be simple, but it is often a balancing act rather than a strict absence. A wine may contain a little leftover sugar and still feel dry on the palate if other elements keep that sweetness in check. Acidity is especially powerful here. It can sharpen the shape of the wine, brighten the fruit, and pull the finish away from anything syrupy or soft. Alcohol and bitterness can also influence the impression. So tasting dry is not always the same thing as being chemically sugar-free. It is more like a sensory verdict reached by the mouth. This is part of what makes wine so compelling. Our experience is not ruled by one number alone. Two wines with similar sugar levels can feel completely different, depending on how all the parts line up. Dryness, then, is not merely content. It is perception, structure, and balance working together in real time. Sweetness, acidity, tannin, and alcohol all pull taste in different directions. A wine is never just one sensation arriving alone. It is several forces meeting at once, each tugging the experience its own way. Sweetness can make the fruit seem rounder and more generous. Acidity can tighten everything, making the wine feel bright, lively, and awake. Tannin brings grip and shape. Alcohol adds warmth and weight, sometimes almost a glow at the back of the mouth. What makes tasting so fascinating is that these elements do not appear in neat sequence. They overlap, compete, and influence one another. A high-acid wine can make sweetness seem lower. Generous fruit can soften the impression of tannin. More alcohol can make a wine feel fuller even before you understand why. This interplay is why balance matters so much in winemaking. A bottle becomes memorable when none of these forces dominates clumsily. Instead, they move together like parts of a single structure, each one shaping the others as you taste. Tannins create that gentle drying feeling along your gums and tongue. That dusty, grippy sensation some wines leave behind is one of the clearest examples of texture in taste. Tannins bind with proteins in your saliva, which reduces lubrication in the mouth and creates that drying, slightly rough feeling on the gums and tongue. It can seem strange at first, especially to new drinkers, because it feels more like touch than flavor. Yet, that is exactly why tannin matters. It gives red wine shape, grip, and length. Without it, many wines would seem softer, looser, and less structured. Tannin also changes with time. In young wines, it can feel firm, angular, or even aggressive. With age, it often softens and becomes finer, more like velvet than chalk. This gives certain wines their famous capacity to evolve. The gripping sensation is not a flaw or a side effect. It is part of the architecture, a textural frame that helps carry the wine across the palate. White wine can be made from red grapes. This sounds like a contradiction until you understand how much depends on timing. If dark-skinned grapes are pressed and their juice is quickly separated from the skins, the liquid can stay pale and be made into white wine. The color never has time to move across. This is not a novelty or trick. It is a respected technique used in several regions, including parts of Champagne, where black grapes can produce wines that look brilliantly light in the glass. The result can be especially fascinating because the grape still contributes its own character through aroma, acidity, and texture, even without lending much visible color. It reminds you that appearance and identity are not always the same thing in wine. A dark berry can create a luminous result. Once you know this, wine becomes less obvious and more surprising. It teaches that what matters is not only what fruit you begin with, but exactly how you handle it. Orange wine is white wine made like red wine. Despite the name, this style usually has nothing to do with oranges. It begins with white grapes, but instead of quickly removing the skins after crushing, the juice stays in contact with them for days, weeks, or even longer. That skin contact deepens the color into shades of amber, copper, or burnished gold, while also adding grip, savory complexity, and structure not usually associated with typical white wine. The result can feel ancient and modern at once. This method reaches back thousands of years, especially in places where wine was fermented in clay vessels, yet it now feels startlingly new to many drinkers. The flavors can be hard to predict if you have only known crisp, easy whites. You may find dried tea, apricot skin, herbs, nuts, or something almost cider-like. It challenges expectations beautifully. The wine looks different, feels different, and asks you to rethink what white grapes are capable of becoming. Rosé gets its color from a very brief touch of skins. The beautiful pink of rosé is often born in a very short window. After dark grapes are crushed, the juice is left with the skins only briefly, sometimes for just a few hours, before they are removed. That short contact is enough to tint the wine anywhere from pale salmon to vivid pink, while still keeping the body lighter than most reds. What makes this so captivating is how exact the timing can be. Leave the skins too briefly, and the wine may look almost silver. Leave them too long, and it begins moving toward red. So rosé lives in a narrow zone of decision, where color, texture, and freshness are all being shaped at once. It is not simply a watered-down red or an afterthought of winemaking. It is its own carefully judged style. A few hours of contact can create an entirely different world in the glass, delicate in appearance, yet precise in design. Ancient winemakers sometimes sealed jars with resin, wax, or clay. Keeping wine safe in the ancient world was a constant struggle. Containers were porous, travel was rough, and air could spoil everything. So early winemakers learned to protect their jars with whatever materials they had close at hand. Resin could coat the inside and slow leakage. Wax could help close an opening against air and contamination. Clay seals could secure the mouth of a vessel, so the contents remained protected during storage or transport. These were not decorative touches. They were acts of practical ingenuity in a world without glass bottles, modern corks, or stainless steel. Sometimes those materials also left their mark on flavor, which means ancient wine may have tasted far stranger to us than we imagine. When you picture old jars stacked in a cellar or loaded onto a ship, it helps to remember how experimental that world really was. Preserving wine meant inventing solutions with earth, tree sap, heat, and patience. Georgia has made wine in buried clay vessels for millennia. In Georgia, wine has been made for thousands of years in large clay vessels called cuvevri, and the method still survives today. These vessels are buried in the ground, which helps keep temperatures stable during fermentation and aging. Grapes, skins, seeds, and sometimes stems can all go into the vessel together. Then the opening is sealed, and the wine is left to transform beneath the earth. There is something almost mesmerizing about that image. The wine is not aging on a bright shelf or inside a shiny tank. It is resting underground, surrounded by soil, held in shaped clay, and guided by a tradition older than many nations. This is more than technique. It is continuity. Families and regions have carried it forward across invasions, changing borders, and vast stretches of time. When people speak about ancient wine culture still living in the present, this is one of the clearest examples anywhere on Earth. Some Roman wines were aged in amphorae instead of barrels. Before wooden barrels became common in much of Europe, Romans often stored and aged wine in amphorae, tall clay vessels with narrow necks and pointed bases. These containers could be stacked, sealed, shipped, and buried in sand, or set into racks for stability. In bustling ports and villas across the empire, amphorae were everywhere. They carried wine across the Mediterranean and turned trade into a vast moving network of clay. Some were lined or sealed to help preserve the contents, and some wines were even heated, sweetened, or otherwise altered in ways that would surprise modern drinkers. The image most people have of aging wine in dark oak cellars simply does not fit this earlier world. Roman wine often lived in fired earth, not wood. That changes the whole mood of it. You begin to picture docks, warehouses, kitchens, and ships filled with pointed jars, each one carrying a liquid shaped by empire and by clay. The Romans spread vineyards wherever their roads and legions reached. As Rome expanded, wine traveled with it. Soldiers needed supplies, settlers planted familiar crops, and merchants followed roads that linked province after province. Vines took root far beyond the Italian heartland, reaching places that would later become some of the most famous wine regions in Europe. The Romans did not merely drink wine. They carried with them knowledge of planting, pruning, storage, transport, and trade. Roads made movement easier. Military presence created demand. Towns and villas formed local markets. Over time, vineyards appeared along river valleys, hillsides, and frontier settlements that had once belonged to entirely different cultures. This is one of the reasons wine history feels so intertwined with political power. Expansion did not only move armies and laws, it moved agriculture and taste. A bottle from France, Spain, or Germany today can still sit in the long shadow of Roman movement. The empire vanished, but many of its vineyards never really did. Monks helped preserve viticulture through centuries of European upheaval. When kingdoms fractured and political order shifted across medieval Europe, monasteries became some of the most important keepers of agricultural knowledge. Among the crops they tended, vines held a special place. Wine was needed for religious ritual, which gave monasteries a strong reason to maintain vineyards even in unsettled times. But their role went far beyond simple preservation. Monks observed which slopes ripened better, which plots drained well, and which wines aged with grace. They recorded, compared, refined, and passed knowledge forward. In some regions, they became among the sharpest students of land anywhere in Europe. There is something powerful in that image. While wars and borders changed outside monastery walls, people inside kept pruning vines, tasting differences, and learning from harvest after harvest. They were not modern scientists, yet they practiced careful long-term attention. Because of that, some of the foundations of famous wine regions survived not through wealth or conquest, but through discipline, memory, and prayer. Medieval vineyards were once mapped with astonishing care and pride. People often imagine the medieval world as vague and unmeasured, but vineyards tell a different story. In many regions, growers and landowners paid extraordinary attention to where one plot ended and another began. Boundaries were described, defended, and remembered because the land itself mattered so much. Certain parcels earned reputations for producing better wine, and those reputations could become sources of income, status, and local pride. Over time, names attached themselves to particular slopes and enclosed sites, and those names endured. This close observation helped lay the groundwork for the way wine regions still think about prized sites today. The fascinating part is how early this sensitivity emerged. People were not only farming, they were noticing patterns with real precision. They understood that two neighboring pieces of land were not interchangeable. So medieval vineyard maps were never just about ownership. They were about identity, quality, and the belief that place itself deserved to be remembered with care. Wine helped shape trade routes long before modern nations existed. Long before passports, railways, or modern borders, wine moved across seas and overland routes in quantities large enough to shape commerce itself. Merchants carried it in clay jars, wooden casks, and later other containers that could survive long journeys. Coastal ports grew busy with exchange. River systems became arteries of movement. Market towns linked inland vineyards to distant buyers who might never see the vines but knew the reputation of their origin. Because wine could spoil, leak, or change in transit, trade demanded skill, timing, and infrastructure. That made it far more than a simple local drink. It became one of the goods that tied regions together and gave certain places economic importance. A successful wine route could enrich estates, cities, and whole communities. When you follow the history of wine, you are often following the history of connection itself. Bottles came later. Before them came routes, ships, roads, bargaining, and the long movement of fragile cargo. Shipwrecks have preserved ancient wine jars on the seafloor. When ancient merchant ships sank, they sometimes carried their cargo into an accidental vault. On the seafloor, amphorae could remain buried in mud or sand for centuries, even millennia, protected from the weathering and disturbance that ruined so much on land. Divers and archaeologists have found wrecks where rows of jars still lie where they settled, turning the seabed into a frozen moment of trade and transport. These discoveries are thrilling because they show not just a single object, but a whole system caught mid-journey. You can see what was being moved, how it was packed, and sometimes where it may have been heading. The sea, which destroyed the voyage, also preserved its evidence. In some cases, residues still cling inside the jars, giving clues to what they once held. A shipwreck can feel like a time capsule with water over it, where commerce, craftsmanship, and catastrophe all survive together in silence. Archaeologists can sometimes identify ancient wines from chemical traces alone. Even when the liquid itself vanished thousands of years ago, wine can leave a fingerprint behind. Tiny chemical residues absorbed into pottery or clinging to the interior of a vessel can survive long after the visible contents have disappeared. Archaeologists and scientists study these traces to look for compounds associated with grapes or fermented wine, such as tartaric acid and other biomarkers. That means a plain-looking jar shard can sometimes reveal that it once held something remarkable. This is one of the most astonishing parts of modern archaeology. A broken vessel does not have to tell its story through shape alone. Chemistry can speak for it. Suddenly, a fragment becomes evidence of agriculture, trade, ritual, or daily life. It turns absence into discovery. The wine is gone, yet its signature remains, faint but legible. Through that residue, researchers can bridge immense stretches of time and recover the presence of a vanished drink from almost nothing at all. A vineyard is really an ecosystem, not just rows of vines. At first glance, a vineyard can look orderly enough to seem almost industrial. Lines of plants, trimmed and trained, all pointing the same way. But step closer, and it becomes clear that far more is happening. Insects hunt among leaves. Microbes live around roots. Grasses compete for space. Birds feed on berries. Fungi, worms, cover crops, hedges, and wildflowers all influence what happens in the soil and above it. Even nearby woods, streams, and stone walls can affect the balance. Some growers now encourage this complexity on purpose because a healthy vineyard depends on more than the vine alone. Predatory insects can help control pests. Ground cover can reduce erosion. Rich microbial life can shape how roots function underground. So a vineyard is never just a crop. It is a living community with many players, and the best wines often begin in places where that community is understood, respected, and kept in balance rather than stripped away. Grapevines struggle best when the soil does not pamper them. It sounds backwards, but vines often produce their most compelling fruit when life is slightly difficult. In rich, comfortable soil, a plant may grow vigorously, pushing out leaves and shoots with enthusiasm. That can look healthy, but it is not always what makes memorable wine. Too much ease can lead to heavy growth, excess shade, and fruit that feels diluted in character. Poorer soils often force the plant to focus. Growth slows. Yields stay lower. Energy is directed more carefully. The berries may remain smaller and more concentrated. That is why some famous vineyards sit on land that seems unimpressive for other crops. Stony slopes, chalky ridges, gravel beds, or fractured rock. To a vine, difficulty can be clarifying. It is one of wine's most fascinating lessons. Abundance does not always create beauty. Sometimes a little hardship does. In the right place, restraint in the soil becomes expression in the glass. Too much water can make a vine less interesting. A vine needs water to live, but beyond a certain point, abundance can become a problem. When water is too easy to find, the plant may grow fast and generously, producing larger berries with more diluted juice. Leaves can become dense, shading fruit and slowing the development of the flavors growers want. The vine becomes comfortable, and comfort is not always exciting. Mild water stress, by contrast, can encourage the plant to regulate itself more carefully. Growth steadies. Fruit stays smaller. Skins and juice can become more intense. This does not mean drought is always good. Severe stress can shut ripening down and harm the plant. The fascination lies in the balance. A vine often performs best when it must work a little, but not suffer too deeply. That narrow middle ground helps explain why rainfall patterns matter so much in wine regions. A season with too much generosity from the sky can leave the result flatter than expected. Vines send roots surprisingly deep in search of water. What you see above ground is only half the story. Beneath the surface, a vine can push roots down through cracks, stones, and layers of soil in a determined search for moisture and stability. In the right conditions, those roots can reach astonishing depths, far below the quick influence of surface weather. That hidden reach matters because it allows the plant to draw from reserves that shallower-rooted crops cannot easily access. It also means the vine is interacting with a larger underground world, one shaped by geology, drainage, and time. When people talk about a vine expressing place, this buried dimension is part of what they mean. The roots are not grazing lightly at the surface. They are exploring. They are navigating. They are finding pathways through fractured ground that may have formed long before the vineyard existed. A glass of wine can seem delicate and fleeting, yet it may begin with a root system quietly descending through ancient earth. Old vines often yield less fruit, but more concentrated flavor. As vines age, they usually stop behaving like young, vigorous plants. Their yields often shrink, sometimes dramatically, and growers accept that loss because something else can deepen in return. Older plants tend to regulate themselves with greater steadiness, producing fewer bunches and often smaller berries, which can lead to fruit with notable intensity. The effect is not a magical guarantee, and not every old vine is automatically superior. But many growers prize them because the fruit can seem more layered, more composed, and less noisy. There is also an emotional dimension to it. An old vine has seen many seasons, many dry years and wet years, many moments of stress and recovery. It has adapted over time, rather than being freshly installed in neat predictability. That sense of endurance becomes part of its mystique. You are not just tasting fruit from a plant. You are tasting fruit from a survivor that has been learning the site for decades. A single frost can change an entire vintage forever. Spring frost is one of the vineyard's quiet terrors because it strikes just as new growth begins. After winter dormancy, vines wake and push out delicate shoots that contain the season's future clusters. On a clear, cold night, temperatures can suddenly fall low enough to kill that tender growth. By morning, what looked full of promise can hang blackened and limp. The damage may be local or widespread, and its effects can echo through the whole year. Some vines may push secondary buds, but these are often less fruitful. Yields can collapse. Ripening patterns can shift. Decisions made later in the cellar are then shaped by a night that lasted only hours. What makes frost so unnerving is how ordinary it can look as it arrives. No dramatic storm, no violent sound, just a still evening and a hard dawn. Yet from that silent event, an entire vintage can emerge smaller, different, and permanently marked. Hail can devastate a vineyard in just a few minutes. There are few vineyard events more brutal than hail. A storm can form, sweep across a region, and in minutes shred leaves, split shoots, scar fruit, and knock whole clusters to the ground. Unlike a gradual shift in weather, this is sudden violence from the sky. Growers may watch a promising season collapse before they can do anything at all. The damage is not just cosmetic. Broken leaves reduce the vine's ability to ripen what remains. Wounded berries can invite rot. Young wood can be injured so badly that future growth is affected as well. Two neighboring villages can experience completely different outcomes depending on the path of the storm, which adds another layer of drama to vineyard life. One plot may escape untouched, while another looks as though it has been whipped by stones. Wine often feels refined and controlled, but moments like this reveal how exposed it is. One brief storm can erase months of hope. Morning mist and afternoon sun can be a magical combination. Some of the world's most fascinating vineyards sit in places where the day begins in fog and ends in brightness. That pattern can create a beautiful kind of tension in the fruit. The cool mist slows the early hours, holding temperatures down and delaying the pace of ripening. Then, as the sun burns through, warmth arrives and pushes the grapes toward maturity. This alternating rhythm can stretch the season in a useful way, allowing fruit to develop with both freshness and richness rather than racing too quickly toward sugar alone. In certain valleys and river regions, that balance has become part of the landscape's identity. Growers count on it, though never completely, because each year shifts its timing and intensity. What seems poetic also has hard consequences in the vineyard. Too much fog can invite disease. Too much sun can flatten nuance. But when both arrive in the right measure, the result can feel almost perfectly tuned. Wind can protect grapes by drying moisture after rain. Wind is often treated as a nuisance in daily life, but in a vineyard, it can be a quiet ally. After rain, moisture lingering on leaves and bunches can encourage fungal disease, especially when the weather stays warm and still. A steady breeze helps by drying the surface more quickly, reducing the damp conditions many problems need in order to spread. That can make a remarkable difference over a season. A site with regular airflow may stay healthier than a sheltered one only a short distance away. Wind can also cool the canopy, slow excess heat, and toughen the vines slightly as they grow. Of course, too much can become destructive, breaking shoots or stressing the plants beyond what is helpful. Once again, wine lives in balance. The best breeze is not chaos. It is movement with purpose. An invisible current crossing the rows can protect the crop simply by refusing to let water sit still for too long. Slope matters because cold air flows downhill like water. Temperature in a vineyard is not distributed evenly, even across short distances, and slope is one reason why. On cold nights, dense air sinks and moves down slope, pooling in low spots much the way water collects in a basin. That means vines planted at the bottom of a site can be more exposed to frost, while those higher up may sit in slightly safer air. This invisible flow changes how growers think about land. A hill is not merely scenic, it is functional. A few meters of elevation can mean the difference between damage and survival in a vulnerable season. Slope also affects sun exposure, drainage, and how machinery moves. But the cold air effect is one of the most dramatic because it turns the landscape into a kind of weather instrument. You cannot see the air slipping downward in the dark, yet the vines respond to it. By dawn, the shape of the land may already have decided part of the year's fate. South-facing vineyards can ripen very differently from north-facing ones. The direction of vineyard faces can quietly rewrite the entire season. In the northern hemisphere, a south-facing slope usually receives more direct sunlight, which means warmer afternoons, faster ripening, and often richer fruit. Turn that same vineyard toward the north, and the rhythm changes. Light arrives at a lower angle, heat builds more slowly, and the grapes may hold on to freshness longer. That can mean lower sugar, brighter acidity, and a different balance of aroma and texture at harvest. Two slopes facing opposite directions can therefore behave like different climates, even when they share the same soil and weather. This is one of the reasons vineyard maps become so detailed. Growers are not merely planting on hills for beauty. They are choosing how the sun will move across the vines day after day. A change in orientation can alter the entire character of the final wine simply by changing the light. Altitude can preserve acidity and freshness in warm regions. Heat can ripen grapes beautifully, but too much of it can flatten them. That is where altitude becomes such a fascinating advantage. As vineyards climb higher, temperatures generally drop, especially at night. Those cooler evenings slow respiration in the grapes and help them retain acidity, which keeps the fruit lively and defined rather than broad and sleepy. In warm countries and sun-drenched valleys, this can make the difference between a heavy wine and a vibrant one. High vineyards also receive stronger sunlight because the atmosphere is thinner, which can help ripening even while the air stays cooler overall. That combination is part of the magic. The fruit matures, yet the freshness survives. It is why some remarkable vineyards sit far above the valley floor, in places that look dramatic and difficult rather than easy. Height can act like a hidden cooling system, giving warm regions a chance to produce wines with energy and lift. Sea breezes can cool vineyards even during fierce summer heat. Near the coast, the ocean can act like a giant breathing body that changes the day. As inland temperatures rise, cooler air from the sea begins to move toward the land, and that breeze can sweep through vineyards just when the heat is becoming intense. The effect is not small. It can lower temperatures, reduce stress on the vines, and slow the pace of ripening enough to preserve elegance in the fruit. In some famous regions, this daily airflow is one of the most important reasons wine can be both ripe and balanced. Without it, the same vineyards might produce something far heavier. The beauty of this lies in how invisible it is. A person may only feel a welcome wind on the skin, yet the vines feel a shift in their whole day. The ocean, even from a distance, becomes part of the wine. It cools the afternoon and leaves its influence behind in the glass. Volcanic soils often become part of wine's mystique and identity. Few vineyard words stir the imagination like volcanic. The idea of vines growing in the remains of ancient eruptions feels dramatic because it is. These soils may include ash, basalt, pumice, and fractured lava, all created by fire and later broken down by time. Growers and drinkers often describe wines from such places as smoky, stony, or especially distinctive, though the exact effect is still debated and never identical from one region to another. What is beyond debate is the atmosphere these sites carry. A vineyard on volcanic ground feels charged with deep history, as though the landscape itself remembers violence and transformation. The vines are rooted in cooled catastrophe. In places like Etna, Santorini, and parts of the Canary Islands, that sense of place becomes inseparable from the wine's identity. You are not only tasting grapes from a field, you are tasting fruit grown from a landscape once shaped by molten earth. Limestone soils can help produce wines with striking tension and lift. Limestone has earned an almost legendary reputation in wine because so many Greek vineyards stand on it or near it. This pale, ancient rock was often formed from marine life long vanished into geological time, and its presence can influence drainage, root penetration, and how water is stored in the ground. Growers often associate limestone sites with wines that feel energetic, finely drawn, and almost luminous in their structure. The word many people reach for is tension, that sense that the wine is alive with inner pull rather than softness alone. Whether the effect is direct or indirect through water balance and vine behavior, the pattern appears often enough to fascinate generations of growers. There is also something poetic about it. Vines rooted in the compressed remains of ancient seabeds can yield wines that seem lifted and precise rather than heavy. Stone from vanished oceans ends up shaping freshness in a modern glass. Gravel soils can store heat and help grapes ripen after sunset. Some vineyard soils do part of their work after the summer's gone down. Gravel is especially important in this way because the stones absorb warmth during the day and then release it slowly as evening cools. That extra stored heat can help grapes continue ripening into the night, smoothing the transition between warm afternoons and cooler darkness. In marginal climates, or in years when every bit of ripening matters, this can be incredibly valuable. Gravel also tends to drain well, which keeps lines from becoming too comfortable and encourages deeper rooting. But it is the heat effect that captures the imagination. A stony vineyard can become almost like a thermal battery, holding the memory of the day and giving it back after sunset. In places such as Bordeaux, this has long been part of the story of certain revered sites. The ground itself stays active, extending the day long after the light has gone. Sand once saved some vineyards from a devastating root pest. When phylloxera spread through the wine world, many vineyards were left ruined. Yet some places escaped, and one of the most surprising reasons was sand. The pest, a tiny aphid-like insect that attacks vine roots, struggles to move and survive in loose, sandy soils. In regions where vineyards were planted on deep sand, the insect often failed to establish itself with the same destructive force it showed elsewhere. That made these sandy sites feel almost miraculous during a period of widespread disaster. Ancient vines survived there when others had to be torn out and replaced. Even today, some celebrated old vineyards remain on their own original roots, partly because sand protected them when other soils could not. This is one of those details that sounds small until you feel its consequences. A grainy, shifting soil that might seem poor or inconvenient became a shield. Entire pieces of wine history were saved by ground too loose for a pest to master. Phylloxera nearly destroyed the wine world in the 19th century. In the late 19th century, one tiny insect triggered one of the greatest agricultural disasters wine had ever faced. Phylloxera, native to North America, found its way into Europe and began feeding on the roots of Vitis vinifera vines, which had little natural resistance. The results were catastrophic. Vineyards weakened, yellowed, and died across France, and then far beyond. Regions whose identities, economies, and traditions depended on vines watched them collapse row by row. People argued over the cause at first, proposed desperate cures, and feared that entire wine cultures might vanish. The scale of the crisis is hard to overstate. This was not a bad season or a local outbreak. It was a near-civilizational shock for the wine world. Villages lost livelihoods. Famous sites became graveyards of dead vines. What makes the story so gripping is the mismatch between cause and effect. A microscopic invader nearly brought down one of humanity's oldest living traditions. Most classic European vines now grow on American rootstocks. After phylloxera ravaged Europe, the solution that emerged was both practical and astonishing. Instead of abandoning traditional grape varieties, growers began grafting them onto roots from American vine species that could resist the pest. That meant the fruiting part above ground remained Cabernet, Pinot Noir, Riesling, Sangiovese, or countless other familiar European grapes, while the hidden root system below belonged to something else entirely. In a sense, modern classic wine became a biological partnership created by crisis. The grape variety people name and celebrate is often living on roots from another continent. This changed the wine world permanently. It also introduced new choices because different rootstocks influence vigor, drought tolerance, and adaptation to certain soils. So beneath some of the most revered vineyards in Europe lies a quiet rescue operation, still at work every day. The visible vine looks traditional, but underground it carries the legacy of survival through grafted identity. A grapevine can live for decades, and sometimes far longer. A vine is not a short-lived crop that appears and disappears in a few seasons. Given the right care and conditions, it can remain productive for decades, and in rare cases for a century or more. Over that time, it becomes something more than a plant in a row. It becomes a witness to weather, pruning, disease pressure, human decisions, and the changing life of the land around it. A very old vine may twist into strange forms, thick as a small tree in places, carrying its age visibly in wood and posture. It has endured drought, wind, storms, and harvest after harvest. That longevity helps explain why vineyards can feel so full of inherited memory. The plants themselves may have been rooted before the current grower was born. When you stand among very old vines, the place feels slower and deeper. These are not seasonal objects. They are living structures that can outlast generations of people. Wine grapes are usually much smaller than table grapes. The grapes you snack on and the grapes that become wine may look related, but they are built for different futures. Table grapes are bred to be plump, juicy, mild, and easy to eat. Wine grapes are usually much smaller, with more skin in proportion to pulp, more seeds, and a very different balance of sugar and acid. That difference matters enormously. Smaller berries can give winemakers more of the compounds that shape aroma, color, and texture, because so much of wine's character comes from what is near the skin rather than from watery flesh alone. A bowl of table grapes can feel simple and refreshing. A cluster of wine grapes can feel almost intense, sometimes sweet, sometimes tart, sometimes surprisingly thick-skinned or bitter if you chew too far. They are not designed for casual eating. They are designed for transformation. What looks like a smaller fruit is really a more concentrated starting point for something much bigger. Thick-skinned grapes often bring more color, tannin, and structure. When a grape has a thicker skin, it carries more than just extra protection from weather and disease. It often carries a larger share of the elements that give wine depth and shape. Color compounds live in the skins of dark grapes, and so do many of the tannins that create grip and frame. During fermentation, those skins become a source of extraction, releasing pigment, texture, and flavor into the liquid around them. That is why certain varieties can produce wines that feel darker, firmer, and more architectural from the first sip. There is often a sense of build in them, like a structure rising piece by piece rather than fading quickly away. This can also make such wines especially suited to aging, because the very compounds that seem bold in youth may soften and integrate beautifully over time. A thicker skin, then, is not just a physical trait. It can be the beginning of a wine's power, patience, and shape. Thin-skinned grapes can produce wines of haunting delicacy. Some of the most unforgettable wines do not arrive with force. They arrive like a voice you lean closer to hear. Thin-skinned grapes often yield less color, less tannin, and a more transparent kind of expression, which can make the resulting wines feel delicate, aromatic, and strikingly exposed. There is nowhere for them to hide. If the sight is beautiful, they can transmit it with astonishing clarity. If the season is difficult, they may reveal that too. This fragility is part of their fascination. They tend to bruise more easily, rot more readily, and demand careful handling from vine to cellar. Yet when everything aligns, they can produce wines that feel almost weightless while still carrying enormous complexity. They do not overwhelm the palate. They linger in memory. The effect can be strangely moving, because the wine seems to say more by saying less. Delicacy, in this case, is not weakness. It is exposure refined into beauty. Pinot Noir is famously difficult and often heartbreakingly beautiful. Few grapes inspire so much devotion and frustration at the same time. Pinot Noir is known for being temperamental in the vineyard, sensitive to climate, prone to disease, and quick to show flaws. It can ripen unevenly. It can lose freshness in heat. It can seem fussy at every stage, from growing to fermenting. Yet when it succeeds, the result can feel almost unreal. The wine often combines red fruit, spice, earth, and silky texture in a way that seems to hover rather than sit heavily on the palate. It can be deeply expressive without relying on sheer weight or darkness. That is why people chase it so obsessively. The margin between disappointment and brilliance is narrow, but the reward can be extraordinary. Pinot Noir does not usually offer simple power. It offers nuance, perfume, and emotional pull. It is the kind of grape that teaches growers humility and teaches drinkers that beauty can be most powerful when it appears fragile. Riesling can be bone dry, lusciously sweet, or both in spirit. Few grapes are as misunderstood or as versatile as Riesling. Some people hear the name and assume sweetness, but the variety can move across an astonishing spectrum, from razor-sharp dry wines to intensely sweet masterpieces built for long aging. In cooler climates, it often holds acidity with remarkable strength, which is what makes its sweetest versions so thrilling. They do not simply feel sugary. They feel lit from within, with brightness carrying the richness. At the dry end, Riesling can be stony, citrusy, floral, and almost electric in its precision. In between lies a wide middle ground of styles that can seem to balance opposites at once. This is where the grape becomes truly fascinating. Even when there is sweetness, it may still feel lifted and tense. Even when dry, it can smell almost honeyed or generous. Riesling has a rare ability to hold contradiction gracefully, which makes it one of wine's most shape-shifting and expressive varieties. Syrah can smell dark and wild, yet taste beautifully precise. Some wines announce themselves with aromas that feel almost untamed. Syrah can give black fruit, cracked pepper, smoke, olive, violet, or something meaty and savory that seems to come from another world entirely. The nose can feel shadowy, deep, and slightly feral. Then you taste it, and what arrives may be far more controlled than expected. In great examples, there is often a remarkable line running through the wine, firm fruit, measured acidity, and tannin that guides rather than bludgeons. That contrast is part of the grape's allure. It smells dramatic, yet it can move with real discipline across the palate. Region changes the voice enormously. In some places it becomes dense and sun-filled. In others it stays taut, peppery, and restrained. But even across those shifts, Syrah often keeps that compelling dual nature. It can feel nocturnal in aroma and almost architectural in structure, wild at first encounter, then unexpectedly exact. Nebbiolo can look pale, while hiding powerful tannins underneath. Nebbiolo teaches one of wine's most important lessons: never trust color alone. Pour it into a glass and it may look surprisingly light, even translucent at the rim, with a brickish or garnet cast that suggests softness. Then you taste it, and the structure can be immense. Tannins rise sharply. Acidity holds the wine upright. What seemed delicate in appearance suddenly reveals grip, tension, and authority. That disconnect is one reason Nebbiolo feels so compelling. It constantly challenges first impressions. Aromatically, it can be equally complex, offering rose, tar, cherry, dried herbs, and earth in combinations that feel both lifted and deep. In youth, it can seem stern. With age, it becomes one of the most haunting wines in the world, opening into layers that feel noble rather than merely powerful. Nebbiolo does not perform its strength in obvious ways. It conceals it behind elegance, then reveals it slowly, like a landscape emerging through morning haze. Sauvignon Blanc can smell startlingly vivid, bright, and green. Some grape varieties whisper. Sauvignon Blanc often leaps from the glass. He can smell of cut grass, gooseberry, grapefruit, lime leaf, passion fruit, or freshly snapped herbs with an immediacy that feels almost impossible. The aromas seem turned up, as though the wine has its own built-in spotlight. Much of that character comes from highly potent aromatic compounds that the grape can express with unusual clarity, especially in cooler sites or styles made to preserve freshness. That is why it can feel so alive and brisk, sometimes almost crackling with energy, before you even taste it. Yet for all its brightness, it is not one note. In different regions, it can shift from citrusy and lean to tropical and exuberant, or from grassy sharpness to smoky mineral tension. What remains constant is its vividness. Sauvignon Blanc rarely drifts by unnoticed. It arrives with a pulse, and often with the kind of freshness that makes the whole glass feel newly switched on. Cabernet Sauvignon became global partly because it travels so well. Some grapes are beloved in one place and difficult everywhere else. Cabernet Sauvignon proved unusually adaptable. It can thrive in a wide range of regions, from classic European sites to the New World, while still retaining a recognizable core of black fruit, structure, and age-worthy character. That reliability helped it spread across continents. Growers found that it could handle travel in a second sense as well. The wines often held up during shipping, aging, and export, which mattered enormously in a global market. Cabernet has thick skins, substantial tannin, and a natural seriousness that can give it durability in bottle. Those traits helped make it both a vineyard success and a commercial one. Once consumers learned the name, it became even easier for the variety to move around the world. Its rise was not just about flavor. It was about resilience, recognition, and the ability to remain itself while crossing oceans, climates, and cultures. Chardonnay is famous for changing shape with climate and winemaking. Chardonnay is one of the great transformers of the wine world. In a cool region, it can become taut, citrusy, mineral, and finely edged. In warmer places, it may turn riper, broader, and filled with peach, melon, or tropical notes. Then winemaking choices can push it further still. Ferment it in steel, and it may stay crisp and clean. Put it in oak, and it can gain toast, spice, and creamy breadth. Allow malolactic fermentation, and the texture may soften toward butter and silk. Keep it leaner, and it can feel almost blade-like in precision. This range is why Chardonnay has become both celebrated and controversial. It can be many things, which means people often argue over which version they love most. Yet that mutability is exactly what makes it so fascinating. Chardonnay is not just a grape with one voice. It is a mirror for place, temperature, and human choice. Some vineyards grow dozens of grape varieties side by side. In many old vineyard landscapes, neat modern order came later. For centuries, growers often planted many grape varieties together in the same plot, sometimes because they inherited a mixture, sometimes because it was the smartest way to survive an uncertain climate. One variety might ripen early. Another might resist rot better. Another might hold acidity and heat. Another might bring perfume, color, or body. Together they formed a kind of living insurance policy. If one struggled in a difficult year, others could still succeed. This also meant the vineyard itself behaved like a chorus rather than a soloist. Fruit from different vines could be harvested together and fermented together, creating wines shaped by diversity from the very start. There is something deeply appealing in that image. A vineyard is not always a monoculture marching in uniform rows. Sometimes it is a crowded, complicated community where many grape voices grow beside one another and face the season as a group. Field blends were common long before modern labeling favored precision. Before wine labels became exercises in exact identity, many wines were simply the result of what the vineyard grew. Different grape varieties were planted together, harvested together, and fermented together in the same vessel. That practice created what is known as a field blend. It was not careless. It was practical, local, and often deeply intelligent. Growers were working with the vineyard as a whole system rather than separating every part into tidy categories. One grape might bring fragrance, another acidity, another color, another sturdiness in a difficult year. The final wine emerged from the land's mixed planting rather than from a single named star. In today's world, where bottles often foreground one variety in large print, that older approach feels almost radical. It reminds us that wine was not always about precision first. It was often about harmony, resilience, and accepting that complexity could begin in the field long before it reached the cellar. One grape variety can mutate into several distinct color forms. Vines are full of quiet surprises, and one of the strangest is that a single grape variety can shift into different color forms through natural mutation. A change in the genes that control pigment can turn dark grapes into pink-skinned versions, or pink ones into pale forms, while much of the vine's deeper identity remains recognizably related. This is why families of grapes can appear across a spectrum, almost like variations on one theme. Pinot is the classic example, with Noir, Gris, and Blanc all closely linked. seeing that family relationship makes wine feel more alive and less fixed than many people imagine. A grape name is not always one static thing. It can branch, change, and reappear in altered form over time. The vine is not a machine stamped out to one permanent design. It is a living organism capable of subtle shifts, and those shifts can end up reshaping entire styles of wine for generations. Clone selection can subtly change how the same grape behaves. Not all vines of the same grape are truly identical. Over time, growers noticed that certain individual plants within a variety behaved a little differently. One might ripen earlier. Another might produce smaller clusters. Another might give looser bunches, deeper color, or more aromatic fruit. When these traits are preserved through propagation, they become clones, genetically very close, yet carrying distinct tendencies. This means a vineyard planted to one grape can still hold many internal possibilities depending on which selections were chosen. To most people, that sounds like a small technical detail. In practice, it can influence the whole style of a wine. A grower may choose one clone for perfume, another for structure, another for consistency in a cool site. This adds another layer to wine's complexity. Even after you decide on the grape, the place, and the farming, the story is still not settled. The character of the vine itself contains many versions of the same name. Harvest timing can swing a wine from sharp to plush. There are few decisions in winemaking more decisive than when to pick. Leave grapes on the vine for a short time longer, and sugars rise, acids fall, skins soften, and flavors move from tart and angular toward richer and rounder. Pick earlier, and the wine may feel bright, tense, and lifted. Pick later, and it may become broader, softer, and more generous in fruit. The difference can be dramatic, even when the vineyard is the same and the weather has barely changed. This is why harvest is never just a matter of waiting for grapes to be ready. Ready for what, exactly, is the real question. Different winemakers looking at the same block may choose different days because they want different futures from the fruit. Timing becomes style. A few days can shift the entire emotional register of a wine. In that sense, harvest is not just agriculture. It is one of the most important artistic decisions in the whole process. Many grapes are picked at night to protect freshness. In some regions, harvest begins not at sunrise but in darkness, under headlights, stars, and cold air. Picking grapes at night helps preserve freshness because the fruit arrives at the winery cooler and calmer. That matters more than it might seem. Warm grapes can oxidize more easily, begin fermenting too soon, or lose delicate aromatic character before they are even processed. Cool fruit gives the cellar team more control and helps retain the vividness many styles depend on. There is also something unforgettable about the image itself. Vineyards that looked still by day suddenly fill with workers or machines moving quietly through the rows while the rest of the landscape sleeps. The harvest becomes almost secretive, timed not by convenience but by temperature. Wine often feels associated with sunlight, but here one of its key moments happens in darkness. The grapes come in cold, carrying the night with them, and that nocturnal beginning can shape the life of the finished wine. Hand harvesting can preserve fragile fruit better than machines. There are times when the gentlest tool is still the human hand. Hand harvesting allows pickers to choose clusters selectively, avoid damaged fruit, and place bunches into small containers with care, rather than subjecting them to rougher movement. This can matter enormously for thin-skinned varieties, for whole cluster fermentations, for sparkling wine, or for steep and awkward sites where machinery cannot work safely. The fruit arrives more intact, which gives the winemaker a cleaner starting point and greater control over what happens next. It also changes the rhythm of harvest. Instead of one sweeping mechanical pass, The work becomes slower, more observant, and more physically intimate. People move vine by vine, making decisions with each cut. That does not make hand-picking automatically superior in every case, but in the right context it can protect a delicacy that machines would struggle to preserve. Some wines begin with a harvest that feels less industrial than surgical, careful, and deliberate. Machines can harvest quickly, precisely, and sometimes beautifully cleanly. Mechanical harvesting is often imagined as blunt or inferior, but modern machines can be astonishingly effective. They move down the row and shake the vine in a controlled way so ripe berries detach, while leaves and larger debris can be sorted out with surprising efficiency. In flat vineyards and suitable trellising systems, this can allow fruit to be picked very quickly at the exact moment the grower wants, which is a major advantage when weather turns or ripeness peaks suddenly. Speed itself becomes a form of precision. Instead of needing a large labor force assembled at once, a grower can bring in an entire block at the right hour with remarkable consistency. For certain styles, especially where whole bunches are not required, the results can be impressively clean. This is one more reminder that wine is not a simple battle between old and new methods. Technology, used well, can serve quality too. Efficiency does not always mean compromise. Sometimes it means perfect timing. Fermentation begins when yeast starts feasting on grape sugar. This is the moment when grape juice stops being merely sweet fruit and starts becoming wine. Yeast cells encounter sugar and begin consuming it, setting off a process that releases alcohol, carbon dioxide, heat, and a cascade of aromatic compounds. What looks still in a tank or vat can suddenly become active and alive. Bubbles rise. Skins lift. Temperatures climb. The room fills with scent. Fermentation is not a symbolic transformation. It is a real biological drama driven by microscopic life multiplying and metabolizing at extraordinary scale. That is why the process feels so central to wine's fascination. It is the hinge on which the whole story turns. Before it, you have fruit. After it, you have something new, unstable, complex, and unmistakably different from its origin. The shift can happen with such force that even experienced winemakers treat it with respect. Once yeast begins its feast, the juice has crossed a threshold, and there is no going back. Native yeasts can create unpredictability, complexity, and real risk. Not every fermentation begins with a cultured strain added from a packet. Some winemakers rely on native yeasts, the diverse microorganisms already present on grape skins, in the winery air, and on cellar surfaces. This can produce wines of striking individuality because many different yeast populations may take turns shaping the fermentation, each contributing slightly different aromas and textures along the way. The result can feel layered, vivid, and closely tied to place. But this freedom comes with danger. Native fermentations may start slowly, proceed unevenly, or stop before all the sugar is consumed. Unwanted microbes can also gain ground and push the wine in flawed directions. So the choice is never purely romantic. It is a gamble with serious consequences. That is part of what makes it so compelling. A winemaker who trusts native yeasts is not just letting nature help. They're opening the door to a more uncertain process where greater complexity and greater vulnerability arrive together. Cultured yeasts give winemakers more control over the final result. Not every winemaker wants to gamble with whatever microbes happen to be present. Cultured yeasts are selected strains grown for reliability, and choosing one can shape fermentation in very specific ways. Some work steadily at lower temperatures. Some preserve fruit aromas. Some tolerate higher alcohol. Some finish cleanly and predictably when conditions become difficult. That gives the cellar a very different kind of confidence. Instead of waiting to see which organisms take charge, the winemaker begins with a known partner and a clearer idea of how the wine is likely to behave. This does not mean the result is soulless. It means the process is less exposed to accident. In a year when fruit is fragile or weather has already caused enough uncertainty, that control can be invaluable. Wine may feel romantic from the outside, but much of its beauty depends on decisions like this, where microscopic management protects a much larger vision from drifting off course. Fermentation can get hot enough to threaten delicate aromas. Fermentation makes its own heat, and sometimes it makes far too much. As yeast tears through sugar, temperatures can rise quickly inside the tank, especially in large volumes of actively fermenting juice. That warmth can push the process forward, but it can also become dangerous. If the temperature climbs too high, delicate aromatic compounds may be driven off or altered, leaving the finished wine less expressive, less fresh, and less true to the fruit it came from. Yeast itself can struggle as conditions intensify, which means the process that creates wine can also begin to damage it from within. This is why temperature control became such a revolution in modern cellars. Cooling jackets, careful monitoring, and well-timed decisions allow winemakers to protect nuance rather than sacrifice it. Beneath the romance of bubbling vats lies a real balancing act. The same biological force that creates complexity can burn it away if it runs too hot for too long. Red wine ferments with skins, seeds, and sometimes stems. What turns dark grapes into red wine is not just fermentation itself, but what ferments together. Instead of pressing the juice cleanly away, winemakers often allow the skins and seeds to remain in contact throughout the process, and sometimes they include stems as well. This creates a far more complex environment inside the tank. Pigment moves out of the skins. Tannins come from skins, seeds, and stems in different ways. Aromas deepen. Texture builds. The fermenting mass becomes thick, alive, and layered rather than simply liquid. Every choice changes the tone. More seed contact can bring grip or bitterness. Whole clusters with stems can add lift, spice, and structure, though they can also push the wine in greener directions if used carelessly. That is why this stage feels so decisive. The wine is not merely being converted from juice into alcohol. It is being assembled from multiple parts of the grape all at once. Punching down keeps floating grape skins wet during fermentation. During red fermentation, the grape skins are pushed upward by carbon dioxide and gather into a thick raft at the surface called the cap. Left alone, that cap can dry out, overheat, or extract unevenly, so winemakers often push it back down into the fermenting juice. This is called punching down, and it can be done gently by hand or with tools designed for the task. The action looks almost physical and old-fashioned, yet it serves several vital purposes at once. It keeps the skins moist, encourages more even extraction, and helps the fermenting mass stay balanced from top to bottom. It also changes the rhythm of the cellar. Fermentation is no longer a passive process watched from across the room. Someone must enter into it, feel the resistance of the skins, smell the rising heat, and decide how forcefully to work. Wine's elegance can begin in gestures that are surprisingly muscular and direct. Pumping over gently washes juice across the rising cap. Another way to manage red fermentation is less physical but just as important. Instead of pushing the floating skins downward, winemakers can draw juice from the bottom of the tank and pump it back over the top, soaking the cap from above. This process, known as pumping over, helps keep the skins wet and encourages extraction without the same plunging movement used in punching down. It can also help with temperature balance, oxygen contact, and the even distribution of yeast and solids throughout the tank. The beauty of the method lies in its adjustability. A gentle pass can preserve delicacy. A stronger or longer one can build more structure and color. It is not simply a technical routine. It is one of the ways a winemaker steers the shape of the wine while it is still being born. A stream of fermenting juice falling across the cap can quietly determine how the finished wine will feel. Malolactic fermentation can turn sharp acidity into softer creaminess. After the main fermentation is over, some wines undergo another transformation that changes their texture and mood. In malolactic fermentation, bacteria convert sharper malic acid into softer lactic acid. Malic acid is the kind found in tart green apples, while lactic acid is gentler, more like what you find in dairy. That shift can make a wine feel rounder, calmer, and more supple on the palate. In some white wines, it contributes to the creamy, buttery impression people often notice. In reds, it can soften edges and help knit the wine together more harmoniously. The change is chemical, but it feels almost emotional in the glass. A wine that seemed pointed and angular may relax into something broader and more settled. Winemakers may encourage it, delay it, or prevent it, depending on the style they want. So even after yeast has finished its work, the wine may still be quietly moving toward a different personality. Lees aging can make wine feel broader and silkier. After fermentation, dead yeast cells and other fine particles settle to the bottom of the vessel. This sediment is called lees, and instead of removing the wine from it immediately, some winemakers allow the liquid to rest there for weeks or months. During that time, the lees slowly break down and release compounds that can change texture, aroma, and mouthfeel. The wine may become richer, rounder, or more satin-like, with a sense of depth that pure fruit alone does not provide. Sometimes the lees are stirred to intensify the effect and keep the contact active. What makes this so fascinating is the reversal of expectation. The remains of fermentation, what looks like spent matter at the bottom of the tank, can become a source of elegance rather than waste. Something finished still has more to give. The wine gains breadth not by adding a new ingredient, but by lingering with what the first transformation left behind. Some wines are filtered heavily, while others remain almost untouched. Before bottling, winemakers face another choice that can shape the wine in subtle but important ways. Filtering can remove particles, microbes, and haze, leaving the wine brighter, cleaner looking, and more stable in the bottle. Heavy filtration can create a polished appearance and reduce the risk of unwanted changes later on. Yet some producers prefer minimal filtration, or none at all, believing that too much stripping can also remove texture, aroma, or a sense of vitality. This creates one of the quiet debates in wine. Is clarity always worth pursuing, or does a little cloudiness sometimes preserve something essential? Neither side is simply right in every case. Some wines benefit from precision and cleanliness. Others seem more complete when handled lightly. The difference can be invisible at first glance, but it may shape how the wine feels on the palate and how alive it seems in the glass. Even finishing touches can become defining choices. Sulfur has protected wine for centuries when used carefully. Few wine ingredients are as misunderstood as sulfur. In controlled amounts, sulfur compounds help protect wine from oxidation and microbial spoilage, which is why they have been used for centuries in one form or another. Without that protection, many wines would brown, lose freshness, or drift into instability far sooner than intended. The important phrase is used carefully. Too little can leave the wine vulnerable. Too much can mute aroma or create unwanted sensory effects. So sulfur is not a blunt preservative poured in without thought. It is one of the quiet tools of cellar precision, measured and timed according to style, condition, and risk. Its long history also reminds us that wine preservation has always required intervention of some kind. Even in traditions that value natural expression, survival in bottle is never automatic. A stable wine is often the result of small protective choices, and sulfur remains one of the most effective guardians ever discovered. A cork is cut from the bark of living trees. A natural cork begins in the bark of the cork oak, a tree that can be harvested without being cut down. Workers strip the bark by hand at intervals of many years, allowing the tree to remain alive and produce new bark again in the future. That alone gives cork an almost magical quality. What seals a bottle may have come not from felling a tree, but from carefully peeling it and waiting for it to renew itself. The material itself is remarkable, light, elastic, and full of tiny air-filled cells that let it compress and then expand inside the neck of a bottle. It creates a seal through its own natural structure. For centuries, that combination of renewability and function made cork the great closure of wine. It is easy to take it for granted because it is so familiar. Yet every natural cork carries a story of landscape, craftsmanship, and patience before it ever reaches the bottle. Screw caps can preserve freshness with remarkable consistency. For a long time, many people assumed screw caps were cheap or lesser, but in practice they solve one of wine's oldest problems with impressive precision. A screw cap creates a highly consistent seal from bottle to bottle, which means the wine inside is far less at the mercy of natural variation in the closure. That matters enormously for styles that depend on purity, brightness, and crisp aromatic detail. Wines meant to taste fresh and vivid can arrive in the glass with that freshness intact, rather than drifting unpredictably from one bottle to the next. This is why many respected producers, especially in regions focused on aromatic whites and early drinking wines, embraced screw caps so strongly. The romance may be different, but the science is compelling. Instead of tradition deciding the outcome, performance does. A small twist of metal can protect a wine with calm reliability, proving that elegance in wine does not always depend on the oldest possible tool. A corked wine is spoiled by taint, not bits of cork. Many people think a wine is corked if they see a crumb of cork floating in the glass, but that is not what the term really means. A truly corked wine has been spoiled by a chemical taint, most famously compounds such as TCA, which can form in cork or in contaminated winery materials. The effect is unmistakable once you know it. Fruit seems dulled or stripped away, and the wine can smell musty, damp, stale, or oddly lifeless, like wet cardboard or a cellar that never dries. It is not dangerous, but it is disappointing because the bottle has lost its voice. What makes this especially frustrating is that the problem can happen even when the cork looks perfectly normal from the outside. So the betrayal is hidden. A natural closure that seems traditional and beautiful can sometimes sabotage the wine it was meant to protect, and a flawless-looking bottle can still be quietly ruined within. Bottle age can transform fruit into spice, earth, and silence. Young wine often speaks in obvious language: fresh fruit, bright energy, direct charm. With time in bottle, that voice can change dramatically. Primary fruit may recede, while new layers emerge that were hidden before: dried spice, forest floor, leather, cedar, tobacco, mushroom, tea, or the faint mineral hush people sometimes struggle to name. This is one of the most thrilling things wine can do. It does not merely fade, it evolves. The transformation can feel like watching color drain from a sunset only to reveal stars behind it. Texture changes too. Tannins soften. Aromas become less loud and more resonant. The whole wine can seem quieter, but also deeper, as though it has stopped trying to impress and begun revealing itself instead. That is why aged wine fascinates so many people. It shows that beauty does not always peak in youth. Sometimes it waits, gathers itself in darkness, and becomes more haunting through restraint. Not every fine wine improves with time in a cellar. The idea that all good wine should be aged is one of the most persistent myths in the subject. Some wines are built to evolve for years, but many are made to be enjoyed while their fruit is lively, their texture is open, and their aromatic character is still at its most expressive. Even expensive or prestigious bottles may not benefit from waiting if their style depends more on freshness than on long development. Aging is not a reward automatically granted by quality. It is a trajectory shaped by structure, acidity, tannin, sugar, winemaking choices, and the intention behind the wine itself. In some cases, leaving a bottle too long does not unlock hidden greatness. It simply lets the wine pass its peak and grow tired. This is part of what makes wine so interesting. Timing matters after bottling just as much as it does before. A cellar is not a magic chamber. It is only a place where the right wine can change well. Light, heat, and oxygen can quietly ruin a bottle. Wine may seem stable once it is sealed, but it remains vulnerable in ways many people never suspect. Too much heat can push it forward too quickly, flattening freshness and making aromas seem tired or cooked. Light, especially prolonged exposure, can damage delicate compounds and leave certain wines smelling oddly dull or unpleasant. Oxygen is more complicated because tiny amounts can help some wines evolve, but uncontrolled exposure steadily strips life away. Fruit fades, colors shift, texture loses precision. What makes this danger so fascinating is how silent it is. A bottle can sit on a bright shelf, in a hot room, or under poor storage conditions without dramatic warning, and yet the damage is already happening. By the time the cork is pulled, the harm may be complete. Wine often feels luxurious and durable, but in truth, it is a fragile archive. It holds a season inside glass, and that season can be erased by bad storage with alarming ease. Serving temperature can completely change what a wine reveals. Temperature is one of the simplest variables in wine, and one of the most powerful. Serve a wine too cold, and aromas can seem muted, texture can tighten, and complexity may retreat behind a wall of chill. Serve it too warm, and alcohol may feel more obvious. Fruit can seem softer or heavier, and balance may drift out of focus. The same bottle can therefore appear sharp, sleepy, elegant, or clumsy, depending on a few degrees in either direction. This is why temperature is not just about preference. It is about access. It determines what the wine is able to show. Crisp whites often gain expression as they warm slightly in the glass. Structured reds can seem more composed when they are cooler than room temperature. What seems like a minor practical detail is really a key to the whole experience. A wine is not fixed when poured. It opens differently according to the climate created around it. The shape of a glass can alter aroma and balance. A wine glass is not merely a vessel for holding liquid. Its size, shape, and opening can influence how aromas collect, how the wine flows across the tongue, and what seems most prominent when you taste. A broader bowl can give aroma more room to gather and expand. A narrower opening can focus those aromas more tightly toward the nose. The angle at which the wine lands in the mouth may also change what feels strongest first: fruit, acidity, bitterness, or texture. Some of these effects are subtle, but they are real enough that experienced tasters often notice them immediately. The same wine can seem more expressive in one glass and more restrained in another. That makes the object itself part of the performance. What looks like tableware becomes an instrument, shaping the experience without changing the liquid. Wine is full of hidden intermediaries, and sometimes even the curve of the glass becomes one of them. Swirling helps release aroma by increasing wine's contact with air. When people swirl a glass, it can look theatrical, but there is real chemistry behind the gesture. Swirling spreads the wine into a thin, moving film along the inside of the glass, which increases its surface area and encourages more volatile aromatic compounds to escape into the air above it. In simple terms, it helps the wine smell more like itself. That is why acquired wine can seem suddenly more expressive after only a few circles. The motion also mixes oxygen into the liquid at the surface, which can momentarily open some wines and make them feel more generous or revealing. Of course, not every wine needs vigorous handling. Some fragile older bottles may be better approached gently, but in many cases, that small movement is enough to wake the wine up. A simple turn of the wrist becomes a way of asking the wine to speak a little louder, and sometimes it answers immediately with a rush of hidden scent. Much of flavor is really smell working through the nose. What we call taste is far less independent than it seems. The tongue can detect sweetness, acidity, bitterness, saltiness, and savoriness, but much of what people describe as flavor actually comes from aroma. As wine moves in the mouth, volatile compounds travel up through the back of the throat to the nasal passages, where the brain interprets them as part of the tasting experience. This is why a wine can seem bursting with cherry, peach, smoke, herbs, or flowers, even though the tongue alone cannot identify those things. It is also why flavor collapses when your nose is blocked. Suddenly the wine seems flatter, simpler, and strangely incomplete. This is one of the most extraordinary parts of tasting. The experience is not confined to the mouth at all. It is a full sensory loop between liquid, air, memory, and perception. Wine feels rich because smell is constantly expanding what taste begins. Blind tasting can expose how powerfully labels shape expectation. Take away the label, the price, the famous region, and the producer's name, and something remarkable happens. People often taste differently. Blind tasting strips wine of the stories wrapped around it and forces attention back onto what is actually in the glass. That can be humbling even for experts. A bottle expected to seem profound may suddenly feel ordinary without its prestige attached. A humble wine may impress far more when no one knows its cost or origin. This does not mean reputation is meaningless. It means expectation is powerful. The mind is never passive when tasting. It anticipates quality, complexity, and status before the first sip even arrives. Blind tasting exposes that hidden influence with startling clarity. It turns wine from a social symbol back into a sensory puzzle. That is why it fascinates so many people. In the dark, without labels, you learn not only about wine, but about how easily the brain edits the experience before tasting has truly begun. Experts can be fooled when prestige and price enter the room. Wine tasting feels objective from the outside, but human perception bends more easily than most people realize. When tasters know a bottle is expensive, rare, or famous, expectation can quietly shape what they believe they are experiencing. The wine may seem deeper, more complex, or more refined before the first sip has fully landed. In experiments, even trained professionals have rated the same wine differently when they believed it came from a higher price bracket. That does not mean expertise is fake. It means the brain is always involved, and the brain loves context. Prestige can act like a filter laid over the glass. Price can feel like evidence of quality even when it is not. This is one reason wine remains so psychologically fascinating. It is never only liquid on the tongue. It is story, status, and suggestion, moving alongside aroma and taste. Even great tasters must work hard to separate sensation from expectation. Color can mislead even trained tasters about taste and quality. Before a wine is even smelled, the eyes begin writing a story about it. A deeper color may suggest richness, ripeness, or power. A paler shade may hint at delicacy or age. Those assumptions can be so strong that even experienced tasters have been misled by them. In famous experiments, white wine tinted red led people to describe it using red wine language, even though the aroma had not truly changed. That is how persuasive sight can be. The brain does not wait patiently for all the evidence. It leaps ahead and starts organizing the experience at once. In wine, that means appearance can influence the very words people use for flavor, texture, and quality. This makes tasting more intriguing, not less. A glass is never entering the mind through one door alone. Vision is already shaping expectation before smell and taste arrive. Sometimes the eyes do not merely observe the wine. They begin inventing it. Music, lighting, and company can change how wine seems to taste. Wine is often treated as though it exists in isolation, but the setting around it can quietly reshape the experience. Soft lighting may make a wine seem more relaxed and generous. Bright light can sharpen attention and alter mood. Music can influence pacing, emotion, and even the kinds of qualities people believe they notice. A rich, dramatic soundtrack may make a wine seem fuller or more intense. Lighter music may make it feel more playful or lifted. Company matters too. The same bottle can seem different in silence than it does in laughter, or after a long conversation rather than a hurried sip. This is not imagination in the dismissive sense. It is perception doing what it always does, blending sensation with context. Wine never arrives in a vacuum. It enters a moment already colored by sound, place, and emotion. That is why a memorable bottle is often inseparable from the room and the people around it. Vintage means the year the grapes were grown, not bottled. The year printed on a wine label is often mistaken for the moment the wine was finished or bottled, but it refers to something more fundamental. Vintage means the year the grapes were harvested. That makes it a record of the growing season rather than the packaging date. It captures the weather that shaped the fruit: spring frost or summer heat, autumn rain, or long dry weeks before harvest. In that sense, a vintage is not just a number. It is a climatic memory condensed into shorthand. Two bottles made in the same cellar from the same vineyard can feel different if they come from different years, because each season posed different challenges and possibilities. One vintage may be leaner, another riper, another more aromatic or more structured. The printed year becomes a doorway into weather, farming decisions, and timing in the vineyard. It tells you when the fruit lived its final days on the vine, which is where the real story begins. Terroir is a real idea, though nobody defines it simply. Few wine words inspire more debate than terroir. People use it to describe the way a wine seems shaped by place, but the place in question is never just one thing. Soil matters, but so do climate, topography, drainage, local biology, and the long habits of the people farming and making the wine. Some hear the word and think only of geology. Others include every natural and human factor that gives a site its identity. That is why the concept can feel both compelling and slippery at once. Everyone senses what it points toward, yet no single definition seems to hold the whole truth. Still, the idea persists because growers and drinkers keep encountering wines that seem unmistakably tied to where they came from. Something about the place survives the process. Terroir names that mystery without fully solving it. It is one of wine's most powerful ideas precisely because it remains both concrete and elusive. Some desert regions make wine through irrigation and cool nights. At first glance, a desert seems like the wrong place for vineyards. The image of wine usually involves green hills and generous rainfall, not dusty heat and sparse water. Yet some desert regions produce remarkable wines by pairing controlled irrigation with large day-to-night temperature shifts. In these places, sunlight is abundant and disease pressure can be low because the air is so dry. Water must be managed carefully, often delivered in precise amounts, but the vines can thrive when growers control that scarcity intelligently. Then night arrives and the temperature drops sharply. That cooling helps preserve freshness and slows the loss of acidity, preventing the fruit from becoming flat or overblown. The result can be surprisingly vivid. Desert wine feels almost improbable because it comes from a landscape that seems hostile at first meeting. But that is exactly part of its fascination. Human planning, scarce water, and dramatic temperature swings combine to make life, and wine, possible in harsh terrain. England now produces sparkling wine that wins global awards. For a long time, the idea of England as a serious wine country sounded improbable to many people. The climate seemed too cool, too damp, and too risky for consistent success. Yet in recent decades, English sparkling wine has emerged with startling force, earning international awards and serious respect. The reasons are both modern and ancient. Southern England shares some chalky soils with parts of Champagne, and warming growing seasons have made high-quality ripening more achievable than before. Sparkling wine also benefits from the very freshness that cooler climates preserve, because sharp acidity is one of the keys to elegance and precision in bubbles. What makes this story so gripping is the reversal of expectation. A country once treated as marginal for wine has become one of the most talked about places for sparkling bottles made with real ambition. It is a reminder that the wine map is not fixed. Climate, technique, and persistence can redraw it. Argentina grows vineyards high in the Andes beneath intense sunlight. Some of Argentina's most remarkable vineyards sit at striking altitude along the foothills of the Andes, where the landscape feels immense and dramatic before a grape is even tasted. These vineyards live beneath powerful sunlight and very dry skies, often with irrigation fed by meltwater descending from the mountains. Height changes everything. Days can be warm and bright, yet nights drop cool enough to help preserve freshness in the fruit. The stronger light at elevation can also affect ripening and skin development in ways that give wines color, energy, and concentration. There is something thrilling about that setting. Grapes are not maturing in soft lowland ease. They are growing in a high, exposed world shaped by mountain air and blazing sun. Argentina turned that environment into one of the great wine stories of the modern era, especially with Malbec. The wines often carry a sense of altitude with them, not just in taste, but in mood and scale. Chile protects many vineyards with mountains, desert, and ocean. Chile occupies one of the most extraordinary viticultural corridors on Earth. To the east rise the Andes. To the west lies the Pacific Ocean. To the north stretches the Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on the planet. To the south, the climate cools and opens into other extremes. This geography creates a remarkable set of natural boundaries around many vineyard regions, shaping weather, disease pressure, and the movement of pests. Cold ocean influence can cool western sites. Mountain snowmelt feeds irrigation in drier areas. Valleys run like channels between great barriers, each with its own rhythm of heat and airflow. The country feels almost engineered for contrast. That is one reason Chilean wine can show such range, from bright coastal freshness to fuller inland ripeness. The landscape is doing constant work before the cellar ever begins. Mountains, desert, and sea do not merely decorate the map. They help define what the vine experiences every season. South Africa's wine history holds both brilliance and deep complexity. South Africa is one of the oldest wine-producing countries outside Europe, with a history that stretches back to the 17th century. Its vineyards sit in landscapes of astonishing beauty, where mountains, ocean influence, and old soils combine to create real distinction in the glass. The country has produced wines of elegance, power, and originality for generations. Yet its wine history also carries the weight of colonialism, land inequality, and apartheid, which shaped who owned vineyards, who labored in them, and who benefited from their success. That is what makes the story complex in a way that cannot be ignored. The brilliance of the wines exists alongside a harder human history that still echoes through the industry. This does not lessen the fascination. It deepens it. South African wine is not just a story of grape varieties and beautiful valleys. It is also a story of labor, power, reform, and the ongoing effort to build something better from a difficult inheritance. California helped prove great wine could come from unexpected places. For a long time, many people in the wine world assumed true greatness belonged mainly to Europe, as though excellence were tied forever to a handful of old regions and could not be seriously challenged. California changed that belief in a dramatic and public way. Its vineyards had sunshine, ambition, new investment, and a generation of producers determined to show that fine wine was not the birthright of one continent alone. The turning point became famous, not because California quietly improved, but because its wines triumphed in blind tastings against revered French bottles and shocked the people judging them. That moment mattered far beyond one competition. It changed confidence, changed investment, and changed the map in people's minds. Suddenly, the question was not whether California could make great wine, but how many other places the old assumptions had overlooked as well. One region's success widened the horizon for the entire modern wine world. New Zealand made Sauvignon Blanc smell louder than many thought possible. Sauvignon Blanc existed long before New Zealand embraced it, but New Zealand gave the grape a startling new voice. In places like Marlborough, the wines emerged with such piercing clarity and aromatic force that they seemed almost amplified. Grapefruit, passion fruit, gooseberry, herbs, cut grass, and green edges all came rushing forward with a vividness that many drinkers had never encountered before. It was not just fresh, it was electric. That intensity helped reshape global expectations of what the grape could be. Producers elsewhere suddenly had a new benchmark in mind, and drinkers who thought they knew Sauvignon Blanc discovered that it could be far more dramatic than they had imagined. The style became instantly recognizable and hugely influential. What makes the story fascinating is that one relatively small wine nation did not merely join the conversation. It took an existing grape and made it speak with a volume the whole world could hear. Ice wine comes from grapes pressed while still frozen. Ice wine begins with an act of waiting that feels almost reckless. Instead of picking the grapes during normal harvest, growers leave them hanging on the vine deep into winter and hope conditions align. When a hard freeze finally arrives, often in darkness before dawn, the fruit is harvested quickly while still frozen solid. Then it is pressed at once. Because the water inside the berries remains frozen as ice, only a tiny amount of intensely concentrated juice can be extracted. What comes out is rich in sugar, acid, and flavor, while yield is heartbreakingly small. This makes the process expensive, risky, and deeply dependent on weather. Birds may take the crop. Rot may ruin it. Warmth may come too soon. Yet when it works, the result can be extraordinary. Sweet, but brightly balanced, full of vivid fruit and energy rather than heaviness alone. It is winter winemaking at its most daring and precise. Noble rot can turn shriveled grapes into intensely sweet treasure. Most rot is a disaster in the vineyard, but under very particular conditions, one fungus can become an unlikely ally. Botrytis cinerea, when it arrives in the right pattern of misty mornings and drying afternoons, pierces grape skins and slowly dehydrates the berries. The grapes shrivel, their juice thickens, and sugars, acids, and flavors become intensely concentrated. It sounds ruinous, and visually it can look almost unsettling, yet this process can create some of the most extraordinary sweet wines on earth. Apricot, honey, saffron, marmalade, spice, and luminous acidity can all emerge from fruit that appears half-spent and collapsing. That is why the term noble rot feels so apt. It describes a rare case where decay becomes elevation rather than loss. The fungus does not simply spoil the berries. It transforms them into a far more concentrated version of themselves. Few things in wine better capture its strange genius for turning fragility and risk into something unforgettable. Fortified wines stop fermentation early or gain spirit for strength. Fortified wine begins with a bold intervention. Instead of allowing fermentation to run its full course every time, winemakers may add grape spirit while sugar still remains, which stops yeast activity and leaves the wine both stronger and sweeter. In other styles, spirit is added later to raise alcohol or stabilize the finished wine after fermentation has already ended. That single act changes everything. Alcohol rises, microbial risk falls, and the wine's trajectory begins to separate from that of ordinary table wine. It can age differently, travel better, and develop a depth that dry wines do not pursue in the same way. Historically, fortification also had practical value because stronger wines survived long journeys more reliably. Yet the fascination is not merely technical. Fortified wines feel like a distinct branch of the wine world, where power, sweetness, warmth, and longevity can meet in forms that range from bright and youthful to deeply layered and centuries old. One added spirit opens a whole new tradition. Marsala, sherry, and port each tell completely different stories. It is easy to group fortified wines together and imagine they are variations on one theme, but Marsala, sherry, and port are worlds apart in origin, method, and character. Port comes from Portugal and is usually fortified during fermentation, which preserves sweetness and creates a wine of fruit, depth, and power. Sherry from southern Spain works differently, often fermenting fully dry first, then aging under layers of yeast or through oxidative systems that produce astonishing complexity, from piercingly dry to richly sweet. Marsala from Sicily has its own long history shaped by trade, aging practices, and a range of styles that can move from savory and nutty to richer and darker expressions. What unites them is not sameness, but ingenuity. Each grew from a specific place with its own climate, grapes, commerce, and historical pressures. So these wines do not represent one category wearing three names. They are three separate traditions that happen to share strength. Some wines are deliberately oxidized and prized for it. Oxidation is often treated as the enemy of wine, and in many cases, it is. Yet some of the world's most distinctive wines are made by welcoming controlled oxidation rather than fleeing it. In these styles, contact with air is not a flaw, but a shaping force. Color deepens toward amber or tawny tones. Fresh fruit steps back. In its place come walnuts, dried fruit, spice, toffee, curry leaf, bruised apple, or savory notes that feel almost impossible to predict if you know only youthful wines. The result can be haunting, especially when the oxidation is balanced by acidity, saltiness, or concentration. It asks the drinker to rethink freshness itself. A wine does not always need to taste newly picked in order to feel alive. Sometimes age, air, and transformation become the very point. These wines are fascinating because they turn apparent damage into style. They prove that wine's beauty is broader than purity alone and can include deliberate weathering. A vintage can be remembered like weather, history, and legend combined. Ask growers or collectors about a famous year, and they often speak of it with the tone people reserve for major storms, great seasons, or moments that seem to define an era. A vintage is remembered not only for what it tasted like, but for how it felt to live through. There may have been spring frost, endless rain, brutal heat, miracle sunshine at the last moment, or harvest days that arrived with perfect timing against all expectation. Over time, these details become stories repeated across cellars and tasting rooms until the year itself acquires a kind of personality. One vintage becomes heroic, another tragic, another miraculous for its balance. This is part of what makes wine so different from most manufactured things. It carries memory in a way people can narrate. A year on the label can evoke weather, anxiety, relief, argument, and triumph all at once. The wine becomes history made drinkable and remembered as character. Wine is chemistry, agriculture, culture, craft, and chance in one glass. Very few things bring together so many different worlds at once. Wine begins in biology and weather in roots, sunlight, microbes, and the physical laws of ripening. It passes through chemistry as sugars become alcohol and aromas form from invisible compounds. It depends on agriculture because vines must be trained, protected, and harvested according to the demands of a living season. Then culture enters, bringing ritual, tradition, commerce, law, taste, memory, and the stories whole regions tell about themselves. Craft shapes it too, in thousands of decisions made by growers and winemakers before the bottle is ever sealed. And through all of this, chance never leaves the room. Rain may come, frost may strike, fermentations may behave unexpectedly, timing may prove everything. That is why wine is so endlessly absorbing. It is not one discipline wearing another's clothes. It is many disciplines colliding inside a single object. A glass of wine is not simple. It is assembled complexity made tangible. Every bottle captures a place, a season, and a disappearing moment. A bottle of wine can sit quietly on a shelf for years, yet what it contains began as something fleeting. It began with one growing season in one place under one sequence of weather that will never happen in quite the same way again. The sunlight, the rain, the heat, the cool nights, the harvest date, the choices in the vineyard and cellar, all of them belong to a moment already vanishing as the wine was being made. That is part of what gives wine its strange emotional power. It preserves, imperfectly but vividly, something that could not be held in any other form. Open the bottle, and that preserved moment begins disappearing again, this time into air, aroma, taste, and memory. It cannot be poured twice in exactly the same way. Even in the glass it keeps changing. Wine is therefore never just a product waiting patiently. It is a captured season already on its way toward becoming the past again. Thank you for wandering through this world of wine with me tonight. We began in the deep past, in caves, clay vessels, and the first astonishing fermentations that linked wine to the rise of human civilization. From there, we moved through vineyards and valleys, across slopes, soils, winds, frosts, and sunlight, following the quiet forces that shape a grape before it ever reaches the cellar. We traced the work of yeast, oak, bottles, and time. We wandered through old vines, ancient trade routes, mountain vineyards, CC-Ewelled coasts, and glasses filled with aromas that seemed to hold whole landscapes inside them. And perhaps that is what makes wine so fascinating. It is never only one thing. It is earth and weather. It is patience and chance. It is human hands meeting living chemistry. It is a hillside after rain. It is cool stone, warm light, drifting mist, dark cellars, and a season captured for just a little while before it slips away again. Now, though, there is nothing more you need to follow. Nothing more to hold in your mind. Just let all those places grow soft around the edges. Let the vineyards fade into evening. Let the cellar doors close. Let the last glasses rest in silence. Allow your breathing to slow, and let your body sink a little deeper into comfort. The day is behind you now, and there is nowhere you need to be but here, resting. And if you're still awake, there will be another video on screen for you to continue the journey a little longer. If these calm explorations help you unwind, you might also like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here too. For now, let your thoughts settle and let the night carry you the rest of the way. Sleep well and good night.